In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kiev because we have very important and interesting article that was published by the Wall Street Journal. Zelensky's attempt to win Trump over to his side has failed. Zelensky has already agreed to a temporary ceasefire proposed by Trump and also signed a minerals agreement with the United States. He even flew to Turkey for talks that he called on Putin to hold. But all this brought Zelensky almost nothing, according to the Wall Street Journal. After yesterday's conversation with Putin, Trump again switched to the consequence of actions proposed by the Russian leader to end the war and also soften his position towards Moscow. So we see that despite Ukraine's attempts, Zelensky's attempts to normalize the relations with the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, we see that Donald Trump still doesn't believe Zelensky, and most likely it's going to be very difficult for Ukraine to restore relations with the United States of America. Probably it is going to be impossible. Now let's move to the line of combat contact and let's talk about the northern directions. During the previous 24 hours, we got very interesting video from the village, from the settlement by the name of Shostka, which is located in the most northern part of the Sumy region. In this video, we can see how the Russians, as a result of reconnaissance operation, managed to discover another position or another military camp training center of the armed forces of Ukraine. And when the Russians discovered this training center, the Russians attacked this area with Iskander missile. The Ukrainians suffered huge losses. According to information we have, as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians lost around 70 soldiers. Furthermore, according to information we have, there were 20 instructors among them. Also, the Ukrainians lost one ammo depot and up to 10 vehicles. So the Ukrainians redeployed their positions, removed this camp, and moved their positions to another settlement. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Sumy direction. According to information we have, by the morning of the 21st of May of 2025, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Loknya. I'll remind you that yesterday we adjusted our map in this area based on the video that was published by the Ukrainian sources. In this video that was published by the Ukrainians, we can see how the Ukrainians were attacking Russian positions in this area with FPV drones, how the Ukrainians were trying to destroy another temporary deployment point and stronghold of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And based on this video, yesterday most of the mappers adjusted their maps in this part of Loknya. Today we got additional confirmation that the Russians took under control not just this side of the river of Loknya, but the eastern bank as well. And now we see that most likely today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation or the Group of Forces North will officially confirm Russian control with this territory, and we expect that during the next 72 hours the Russians will continue their offensive operation further in the direction of the village of Yunakiivka.
Call it, take it quickly, Origi!
Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Sivas direction. And according to information we have and according to updates we got during the previous 12 hours, we believe that this is probably the most interesting direction during the previous night. According to information we have, the Russians managed to take under complete control the village of Verkhnekamenskaya. This information was confirmed both by different geolocations and by several map adjustments provided by different mappers. So let's discuss first this video. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources, and in this video we can see how Ukrainians, most likely of the 54th Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, were attacking and FPV droning the Russians in the area of the village of Verkhnekamenskaya and on the territory of the village itself. So as you can see, lots of explosions, lots of artillery strikes, lots of FPV drone attacks. Several episodes were geolocated in the central part and in the western part. This is the first place where Ukraine attacked, this is the second, and this is the third one. So as you can see, according to these geolocations, the Russians managed to get the most western part of the village of Verkhnekamenskaya. As for now, we still haven't received anything from the most southern part of the village from these farms, but I'll remind you that according to different mappers, this territory also was taken by the Russians during the previous days. So once again, we believe and we expect that these upcoming days or maybe several hours, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm complete control over this territory, and now we see that the Russians are going to move further. Obviously, the Russians need some time to regroup themselves, to strengthen strengthen their positions, to bring additional forces, to collect a critical mass. But obviously, this is already the beginning of the battle for the city of Siversk itself, the key city in the Liman-Kramatorsk direction. Furthermore, we have added several reservists to the map. Now we see that the land is very difficult for Russians to carry out any offensive. So that is why we expect that, first of all, the Russians will try to finish everything between the villages of Grigorovka and Serebryanka, and only after the Russians establish complete control over this territory, and most likely after the Russians finish the battle for the southern pockets to the village of Verkhnekamenskaya, only after these two tasks, only after these two battles, the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the Siversk direction. Obviously, this is very interesting situation, so let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now let's move to the Konstantinovka direction and to N32 road. The Russians during the previous night managed to improve their position significantly. According to different mappers, the Russians have almost cut the most southern part of the Skliban-Byksky pocket. So this is the situation, for example, by the end of the 18th of May of 2025, 19th of May of 2025. So 2 days ago, we could see this situation. And by the end of the 19th of May of 2025, we got first reports that the Russians entered the village of Romanovka, and this was exactly a turning point in the battle for this pocket, because when the Ukrainians realized that they are about to lose control over the village of Romanovka, they realized that there were very high chances that they could be caught and cauldron by the Russians completely without any chances for evacuation. So that is why, starting on the 20th of May, the Ukrainians began massive evacuation from the most southern pocket, and by the end of the 20th of May, we received first report from pro-Ukrainian sources that almost the entire southwestern part of this back pocket was abandoned by the Ukrainian forces. And by the morning of the 21st of May of 2025, we see that Ukrainians abandoned more positions. As for the beginning of the 21st of May, the Ukrainians abandoned the southeastern part of this pocket. Furthermore, according to several mappers, the Russians, as you can see, improved their positions in the most southern part of the village of Stara Nikolaevka, and currently the Russians, according to information we have, control up to 30% of this village, and the Russians continue advancing. So we believe that most likely with this rate, the Russians will take under complete control the village of Stara Nikolaevka within the next 48 hours, and the battle for Zarya will begin. Now let's move further. As for the western flank of the Kliban-Byksky pocket, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions as well. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians took under control additional 3 lines in the most western flank. This information was provided by neutral mappers, and the Russians managed to take under complete control to the territories to the west of the village of Novalenovka. I'll remind you that as for these territories, several pro-Russian resources reported about this several days ago. So we see that the Russians continue advancing and continue improving their positions. But as of now, as you can see, we have a very huge gap between the territories that were geolocated under Russian control and territories that were provided us by different mappers. So we are waiting when this gap will be reduced. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the South Donetsk direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation along the river of Mokrye Yaly. Today the Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russian positions in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Odradne. Lots of FPV drone attacks along this tree line. This video was geolocated, and this is exactly the point where the Ukrainians were attacking Russian units. Based on this video, we have adjusted this red pocket in Russian favor. We see that the Russians indeed managed to break through towards the village of Kamar, but as of the village of Kamar, there is a very big stronghold right in front of this settlement. So now the Russians most likely will turn their attention in the northeastern direction with the purpose to cut N15 road and to force the Ukrainians in the very near future to fall back from Odradne in the northwestern direction. Otherwise, the Ukrainians would be caught in cauldron. At the same time, the Russians continue their offensive operation in Zelene Pole and Novopol. I'll remind you that yesterday the pro-Ukrainian resources reported that the Russians managed to break through Ukrainian defense and to answer both villages. The Ukrainians reported, the Ukrainians from Deep State, from pro-Ukrainian source, reported that the situation in this area was critical. According to them, the units of the 31st Brigade and Presidential Brigade were holding their lines, while the units of the Territorial Defense Brigade were reporting a lie. The Territory Defense Brigade reported that they were controlling the flanks and that the situation was stable along the flanks, but those reports were fake, according to Deep State. And the problem is that the Russians basically outflanked the positions of the 31st Brigade and Presidential Brigade and caught the Ukrainians in Cauldron. We discussed this Cauldron several days ago. Furthermore, today we got a report from neutral mappers and they confirmed the same situation. So we see that the defense of Ukraine in this area collapsed completely, and we expect that the battle for these two villages will be finished in the very near future. Now let's discuss several more political updates. We have very interesting information from the European Union. We see that Europeans can't do anything with the Russians and with their offensive operation and with the situation in Ukraine. So this summer, the European Union most likely will be concentrated on the reducing of the price for oil. The European Union is preparing to propose that G7 lower the price cap on Russia oil exports from the current $60 per barrel to $50, according to the European Union Economy Commissioner Vali Dombrovskis. So this is, according to them, we see that they tried to reduce the price for $10. Today we got report that Ukraine suggested to reduce the price for Russian oil even more, for $30. So this is the proposal of Ukraine. Ukraine demands that G7 lower the price of Russia oil to $30. So we see that most likely this is going to be the battle of summer from the European Union. Most likely we're going to see and we're going to hear lots of cases, lots of events in the Baltic Sea, in the North Sea, in the ocean, when the European countries and NATO countries would try to arrest and to take and to capture as many as possible ships of the Russian Shadow Fleet. The battle in the sea and in the ocean is about to start. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel. Put your